Audiobook. Welcome to Wise Moment TV channel. Our book today, it's The Dragon King's Secret Bride. Presents a world where fire obeys, dragons rule, and love can change the fate of kingdoms. I'm so glad you're here, ready to step into the land of Aethoria, where magic burns bright, danger lurks at every corner, and one brave girl may hold the key to a prophecy that could save or destroy the Dragon King. Before we dive into this adventure, make sure to hit that subscribe button and give a like, so you never miss a story that will take you deep into worlds of magic, mystery, and heart-pounding adventure. Get ready, the story begins now. The Dragon King's secret bride in the ancient land of Aethoria, fire was not feared. It was obeyed. The mountains stood black and scarred, their peaks shaped by centuries of dragon flame. Rivers ran warm near the capital, heated by magic buried deep beneath the stone. Even the sky carried wounds, long pale streaks where wings had torn through cloud and storm. Every child born in Aethoria learned the truth before learning their own name. Dragons ruled, kings served, and love was a weakness no one survived for long. Aethoria had lived her entire life at the edge of the kingdom, where ash drifted down like gray snow and hope never stayed long enough to grow roots. Her village crouched beyond the marble gates of the capital, far from the towers of nobles and the glow of magic. People there survived through silence. Aethoria was good at being silent. She rose before sunrise each morning, when the world was still cold and quiet. Wrapped in a worn cloak, she walked the narrow dirt path to the river, carrying empty buckets that would soon feel far too heavy. The water was always icy, biting into her fingers, but she never complained. Her hands were scarred, her shoulders ached, her back bent under the weight of labor, but her eyes remained sharp, too sharp for a girl who should have known her place. That morning, before the bells rang, Aethoria felt something change. The ground trembled beneath her feet, not enough to knock her down, but enough to make her pause. The river rippled unnaturally. Birds scattered from the trees in frantic bursts of wings. Then the bells began to ring, deep, thunderous, endless. The Dragon King had returned. Across the land, people froze. Buckets fell from hands. Doors slammed shut. In the capital, merchants abandoned stalls and guards dropped to one knee. In the villages, people bowed their heads and whispered prayers meant more to soothe fear than summon mercy. Aethoria stood still. Her heart beat fast, but she did not kneel. The sky darkened as though the sun itself wished to hide. Wind tore through the valley, whipping cloaks and sending dust spiraling into the air. Then came the sound, low and ancient, powerful enough to shake bone and blood alike. A roar. The dragon descended from the clouds like a living storm. Its scales burned gold and crimson, each one catching the light like molten metal. Massive wings stretched wide, blotting out the sky as it landed atop the high stone platform near the city gates. Flames curled lazily from its mouth, lighting the air with heat and smoke. And upon its back sat a man clad in black armor. He wore no crown of gold. Firelight lived in his eyes instead. King Kale of the Ember Throne. He dismounted slowly, boots striking stone with deliberate weight. Every movement was controlled, practiced, dangerous. The crowd bowed as one, foreheads pressed to the ground. Aethoria did not. She told herself it was shock, curiosity, stubborn pride, but when she looked at him, something inside her shifted like a locked door cracking open for the first time. Across the square, Kale felt it, a sudden pull in his chest, a wrongness in the magic flowing through his blood. Among thousands of kneeling figures, his gaze locked onto a single girl standing by the river path. She was watching him, not in fear, not in awe, but as if she saw him. The magic stirred violently. Kale's jaw tightened. He had felt this sensation only once before, on the night the curse bound him to the dragons forever. He turned to his advisor, his voice low and sharp. "Who is she?" The advisor followed his gaze, his face drained of color. "A village girl, my king, no one of importance." Kale's eyes burned brighter. "Bring her to the palace." The guards hesitated only a heartbeat before moving. Hands seized Aethoria's arms. Her buckets fell, water spilling uselessly into the dirt. Fear rose fast and sharp in her chest, but beneath it, undeniable and dangerous, was curiosity. She did not scream. She did not fight. The palace gates loomed high above her as she was led inside. A world of marble floors and glowing torches, of walls carved with ancient runes that pulsed faintly with magic. Aethoria felt small walking through its halls, yet strangely unbroken. King Kale entered the chamber alone. "You should be afraid," he said. Aethoria lifted her chin. "I am, but I won't kneel." Silence followed. Then unexpectedly, Kale smiled, just slightly. "Good," he said. "I would have been disappointed." Alara's mind raced as she walked the grand halls of the palace. Every step echoed on polished marble, carrying her fear and wonder alike. She had never seen anything so magnificent, yet none of it made her feel safe. King Kale watched her closely, his eyes like embers that burned deep and unreadable. "You must understand," he said, voice low. "Not everyone who steps into this palace survives the first day. You are fortunate that I have curiosity tonight." Alara's lips parted. "I do not understand." Kale smiled faintly, though there was no warmth in it. "Then you will learn." Fast, he gestured toward a long corridor lined with bookshelves that seemed to touch the ceiling. Ancient texts hummed faintly with magic, the air thick with the scent of parchment and secrets. "You will study history, magic, dragon lore. You will learn faster than anyone before you, or this palace may consume you." Alara swallowed hard. "And if I fail?" Kale's gaze softened just slightly. "Then you will still be alive, but you will wish you had not tried." As she began her lessons, strange thoughts began to stir in Alara's mind. She realized she was learning not just about magic, but about Kale himself. How he moved, how he breathed, how the shadows of his past weighed on him. And slowly, despite herself, she began to care. At night, she found herself on the palace balcony, gazing at the dragons circling high above. Flames flickered across their scales like whispers in the dark. She wondered what it would be like to fly among them, to feel fire as a part of herself. A voice broke her thoughts. "You are not afraid," Kale said, stepping from the shadows. His presence was powerful, commanding, yet not threatening. "I am," Alara admitted, "but I will not run." Kale's eyes softened, and for the first time he allowed a hint of vulnerability to show. "Few have the courage to stand as you do." They stood together in silence, watching the dragons vanish into the night. Alara's heart ached with unspoken questions. Why had he chosen her? What did the prophecy mean? And most importantly, could she truly trust him? Before she could answer, Kale's gaze fell to the distant hills where torches flickered in the darkness. The alarm bells sounded faintly. Someone had dared to enter the kingdom. Alara tensed. "Is it?" Kale's hand rose, stopping her. "Patience. Some things must be seen before they are understood." The shadows shifted, and in that moment the bond between them, fragile yet undeniable, tightened. A silent promise of danger, and perhaps love, hung in the air. If you're enjoying Alara's journey and want to see how the Dragon King's secret unfolds, don't forget to hit subscribe and give a like, so you can continue the adventure as we dive deeper into Aethoria's mysteries. Days turned into weeks and lessons grew harder. Alara studied every scroll, memorized every incantation, and practiced magic she had never believed she could touch. Kale watched her closely, sometimes guiding, sometimes testing. "You are more capable than most dragons I have trained," he said one evening. "Perhaps you were always meant to be here." Alara's cheeks flushed, and she looked away. "I am no dragon." "Perhaps not," Kale murmured, "but the fire recognizes you anyway." Their conversations became battles of wit. Arguments about magic, history, and destiny blended with moments of laughter that neither would admit they enjoyed. And slowly the walls around Kale's heart began to crack. One night, as embers floated lazily from the palace chimneys, Alara and Kale stood on the balcony once again. "You should hate me," Kale said quietly. Alara shook her head. "I don't, and that scares me." His voice dropped, heavy with emotion. "It should." For a moment, nothing existed but the air between them. Then horns sounded across the kingdom, and the balcony shook under the approaching chaos. A rebellion. Shouts filled the air. Guards ran past them, some shouting orders, others fleeing. The palace walls trembled with the first flames of fire that were not dragonborn. Alara gripped the railing, fear twisting her stomach into knots. "What is happening?" Kale's eyes darkened. "They are testing us, testing me." Steel clashed, echoing across the corridors. A general appeared among the smoke and shadows, yelling, "The king has grown weak. He protects a girl instead of the throne." Alara's pulse raced. She had no time to react before a blade flashed in the torchlight. Kale moved faster than thought, magic exploding outward. Fire roared, bending the metal and stone around them. In the chaos, he transformed. Wings of flame erupted from his back, his eyes glowing molten gold. Alara froze. "You're a dragon?" Kale's human form returned as the rebels fled, leaving ruin in their wake. Smoke curled into the night sky as dragons circled above, their shadows flickering over the broken palace stones. Kale looked at her, stripped of armor and crown, voice low but urgent. "If you stay, the prophecy will kill me." Alara stepped back, heart pounding. Flames danced in her eyes, reflecting the danger and the love standing before her. The palace lay in ruin. Smoke curled from shattered windows, drifting lazily into the night sky. Yet in the chaos, Kale stood firm, his eyes scanning the horizon as flames licked the stones around him. Alara's heart pounded. She had seen him fight, but never like this, never with such fury, such raw power. Every move was precise, controlled, yet terrifying. "You should not be here," Kale said, voice low, almost a growl. "This is my battle, not yours." Alara's fingers clenched at the torn edge of her cloak. "Then let me help," she whispered, her voice trembling but firm. Kale's eyes softened just slightly. "There is no place for you in this fight." Yet she could not look away. She would not. The fire reflected in his eyes and in the dragons circling above, and she felt a strange bond, as if their destinies were entwined in the same flames. A sudden roar split the night. One of the dragons swooped down, knocking a group of rebels aside with a single sweep of its wings. Sparks rained over the courtyard. Alara instinctively ducked behind a fallen pillar. Her heart raced, adrenaline pushing her fear into focus. Kale's presence was near, comforting, and dangerous at once. Through the chaos, Kale's voice rang out, commanding. "You cannot hide, Alara, you must see. You must understand." Before her eyes, a figure emerged from the smoke, a general clad in blackened steel, eyes gleaming with hatred. "The king protects a girl instead of his throne," he shouted. Kale's wings unfurled in a brilliant flash of fire, illuminating the courtyard. The general faltered for just a moment, long enough for Kale to strike with a controlled wave of flame that sent the man sprawling. Alara's chest heaved. She had never imagined such power, such fury, and yet, in the same instant, she sensed vulnerability behind Kale's golden gaze. If you're captivated by Alara's courage and want to see what happens next, make sure to subscribe and like to continue the journey through danger, magic, and destiny. Hours passed. The night stretched endlessly as the rebels tried to regroup, but Kale's dragons circled with patience and precision. Every flame, every strike, protected Alara even as he kept the palace's defenses intact. Finally, dawn broke. The smoke cleared, revealing a courtyard scarred by fire but free of attackers. Kale landed softly, wings folding behind him, eyes scanning for threats that were no longer there. Alara approached cautiously. "Is it over?" she asked, voice barely above a whisper. Kale studied her. "For now, but this is only the beginning." He turned, letting the morning light highlight the deep lines of exhaustion and determination across his face. "You have seen enough tonight. Rest. You will need all your strength." Alara nodded, but her mind refused peace. The danger outside was gone, but the tension within her remained. She had glimpsed the prophecy in action, seen Kale in his true form, and understood that the story of Aethoria was far from simple. She looked up at him. "Will it always be like this? Fire, danger, betrayal?" Kale's eyes softened. "Sometimes. But courage changes the outcome." If you're following Alara's story and want to see how courage shapes the Dragon King's fate, subscribe and like now, so you won't miss the next thrilling part of the adventure. The day passed quietly, giving only a brief respite. Kale allowed Alara to walk through the gardens of the palace, teaching her to sense magic in nature. The way the wind carried a spell, or the way water could amplify power if touched with intent. They spoke little of the rebellion, but the silence was heavy with unspoken words. Each glance, each careful movement carried weight. Kale watched her closely, as though measuring her resolve, testing her understanding, and perhaps her heart. By nightfall, Alara had learned more than she could have imagined. Magic intertwined with history, duty tangled with desire, and prophecy laced through every action in the kingdom. As she finally closed her eyes to rest, a single thought lingered. Kale had chosen her. And that choice had already changed everything for the sun had barely risen when Alara awoke to the faint hum of the palace walls. Though the courtyard had been cleared of rebels, the palace itself carried scars. Smoke-stained walls, shattered windows, and the smell of burnt stone that lingered in every corridor. Kale had already been awake for hours, pacing silently in the war room. Maps were spread across the table, marked with the paths of the dragons, the positions of enemies, and the weak points of the kingdom's defenses. Alara stepped quietly behind him. "You've barely slept," she observed. Kale didn't look up. "Sleep is a luxury I cannot afford, and neither can you, not while the kingdom stands in danger." She swallowed, noticing how the weight of responsibility pressed on him. Yet beneath it all, there was a strength that inspired her. She could feel it, pulsing through the room, like a heartbeat that belonged to both the palace and the dragons themselves. He finally glanced at her, eyes sharp yet unreadable. "You have potential," he said. "More than most I have seen, but potential is useless without control. You must learn discipline." Alara nodded. "Then teach me." For the next hours, he guided her through the subtleties of dragon magic. She learned to summon small flames from her hands, to sense the energy that bound creatures to the land, and to hear the whispers of spells hidden in the wind. Each lesson was exhausting, but every success made her heart beat faster with a sense of purpose. By late afternoon, Kale led her to the library, a vast hall filled with books older than the kingdom itself. "Knowledge is power," he said, "and understanding history is as important as understanding magic. To survive here, you must master both." Aethoria spent hours reading of dragons and kings, of prophecies written in blood and fire, of battles fought before she was born. She realized that Aethoria's peace was fragile, always balanced on the edge of flame. Night fell and the palace quieted. Kale led her to the balcony once more. Stars shimmered above and the dragons circled silently in the sky, a reminder of the power that watched over the kingdom. "You are learning quickly," Kale said, "faster than I expected." Aethoria smiled faintly. "I have a good teacher." He looked at her, the golden glow of his eyes soft in the moonlight. "You must always be ready. Danger comes swiftly here, and it comes in forms you cannot always predict." Before she could ask what he meant, a distant horn echoed from the valley below. Kale stiffened. Shadows lengthened across the courtyard, and even the dragons seemed restless. Aethoria's stomach knotted. "Is it another attack?" Kale's expression was unreadable. "Possibly, or it could be something far worse. Stay close to me. Nothing will happen if you do as I say." The night stretched long and tense. Every movement in the palace was mirrored by caution. Aethoria felt the weight of every glance, every step, every whisper. She had learned that survival here depended not only on skill and magic, but on understanding the unspoken rules of power, fear, and trust. Hours later, Kale returned her to her chambers. "Rest. Tomorrow we prepare for what comes next." Aethoria lay on her bed, exhausted yet alert. The moonlight filtered through broken windows, casting jagged shadows across the floor. She thought of the dragons, of Kale, of the prophecy, and of the strange pull she felt toward the man who was both terrifying and irresistible. Sleep came reluctantly, carrying dreams of fire, flight, and a kingdom hanging on the edge of destiny. Then morning came quietly, though the palace still bore the marks of the night's chaos. Ash floated lazily through the corridors, and the faint smell of smoke clung to the air. The city below seemed peaceful for now, but Aethoria knew better. Danger had a way of returning when least expected. Kale moved through the halls with silent precision, checking defenses, commanding dragons, and reviewing maps of the kingdom. His focus was unbroken, yet every so often his gaze lingered on Aethoria, measuring, calculating, and perhaps protecting. "You have done well," he said, finally noticing her in the hallway. "You have adapted quickly." Aethoria bowed her head. "I only follow your guidance." Kale studied her carefully. "Follow it wisely. There will come a time when you must act without me." Her stomach tightened. "And if I fail?" He gave her a long look, one that carried both warning and respect. "Then we all fail, but I trust you will not." The day passed with lessons in strategy, magic, and diplomacy. Aethoria learned to move as Kale moved, to anticipate danger, and to sense the currents of power that flowed through the palace. Every moment honed her skill, but also deepened the bond she felt with the Dragon King. By evening, they stood together on the highest balcony of the palace, overlooking the kingdom. The sky burned with the colors of sunset, reflecting off the dragons as they circled above. Kale broke the silence. "You have changed, Aethoria. Not just in skill, but in courage, and courage is rare in this world." Aethoria's heart fluttered. "I've only survived because of you." "No," Kale said quietly, eyes fixed on the horizon. "You survived because you were meant to, because fire recognizes its own." A silence stretched between them, heavy with unspoken thoughts. The rebellion had been repelled, the palace secured, but the prophecy still hung over them. They both understood the danger was far from over. Finally, Kale spoke again. "Rest tonight. Tomorrow the true test begins. You must be ready." Aethoria nodded. Her chest ached with anticipation and fear, but she felt stronger than she ever had. She knew now that her life was no longer her own. It belonged in part to the kingdom, to Kale, and perhaps to something greater. As she settled in her chambers, the dragons circled overhead, their wings beating rhythmically in the night. She thought of the prophecy of the fire and of the man whose eyes burned with molten gold. For the first time, she did not feel small. She did not feel alone. She felt alive. Thank you so much for listening to episode 1 of The Dragon King's Secret Bride. If you enjoyed Aethoria's journey through danger, magic, and destiny, please show your support by hitting the like button and subscribing. Your support keeps the stories alive and helps bring more adventures straight to you. Leave a comment with your favorite moment from this episode. I'd love to see which parts captured your imagination. In the next episode, we will continue with a different story and book, one that is even more exciting, helpful, and full of lessons to inspire your imagination.